Everyone. I'm glad to see a lot of people came back. I thought that other session good. That's why I had Clint was a great guy. He was a great speaker. I hope you all enjoyed that, and that hopefully that brought a lot of people back, which worked out great. Now this session we're going to dig a little deeper into that one topic I mentioned about connected workers. And as I mentioned, that's one that's near and dear to me, securing industrial connected workers, because I've been doing a lot of stuff about that. And by the way, I think I may have it on a slide or something, but there's a report we wrote at the end of this. Well, I actually wrote it, I think, at the end of this end of last year, in preparation for a February forum, which we didn't hold. So, but it's still there. So if somebody would like a copy of that, and it goes into a lot of detail about the different scenarios and solutions and things like that, just send me an email. I'll be happy to get you a copy, okay? So let's get started. Now, the one thing about that I start here, and then the issue here is that connectivity, and I use connectivity very broadly, which is the ability to seamlessly, access information and apps and systems and people from anywhere at any time using any device. One of these real general kind of definitions, and I think that's true. People expect all that today. And this little slide right here this is what you have in your own life. Right now, actually at home, I had to turn it off on my phone. We have a little Amazon Blinks. I don't know if anybody else has the Blink cameras. And we have them around our house. My wife bought them, and they're great. And we have one in the back door and stuff like that, and one on the front door. And I keep getting blinked because I have birds in the backyard that keep flying over, and it triggers. But I like that, all right? So I want to do that. But obviously, I'm connecting stuff, and it's connected to my Wi-Fi system in my house. And so who knows what I'm doing? I'm not the best security guy, as you could tell. Right? I'm like that doctor that tells you what to do, and then you see him smoking. I had a doctor one time. It was like that. But anyhow, the one thing I think we're finding, and that's what I mentioned about digital transformation, is we're finding that if you listen to a lot of the use cases where people are saying, oh, we're using digital transformation, a lot of it has to do with connectivity. There are new tools. There's new technologies and stuff. But a lot of it is just enabling connectivity, either between systems and systems, systems and people, people and people. So we're finding that's true in normal life, and people expect the same kind of stuff in their job. And when I say that, when I talk to companies and things like that, I'm finding that this trend towards connectivity, and I would call it connected workers, let me be more specific now, is really happening across all of the industries. You can see these are the kind of industries we follow. There's the classic power and discrete manufacturing and stuff, but also buildings, like Clint mentioned, the buildings with the HVAC systems, but smart cities and transportation and stuff like that. We see workers becoming more connected with each other, with systems and things like that all over the place. And the kinds of people who are doing this ranges from managers to engineers and project managers that want to connect to assets back in their office when they're at the site, or vice versa. Operators and maintenance personnel, construction workers, site service personnel, where a lot of companies now are taking advantage of remote service, which I think is a very good thing. And these people who are doing the connected workers are using all kinds of technologies, mobile tablets, your cell phone, like I just did here, and they're bringing them into the facilities. And we're focusing more on OT here, but we see the same thing happening in IT. A lot of collaboration platforms. Everybody's doing team meetings today, be they Team or Zoom or something like that. And all of those things are using devices, and I think people want to do that even from their devices in a plant, if they can. Most plants don't allow that, but I think it's going to get there, okay? Because they want it, and there's value to it. I've seen some good examples at a Rockwell conference. This was a couple years ago, but it was one of these things where somebody had an iPad, and you hold it to show the machine, and you're getting support from somebody who's a maintenance person somewhere else, completely outside, and he wants to see what's wrong, right? And he'll say, oh yeah, you got to push that red button, or push this or push that. Enabling that, when you think of it from the point of view of connectivity, there's a lot of security issues related to that. So, and these are the kind of systems that we see being connected. People, the workers connecting to, they're connecting to the IT systems, the OT systems, clouds, systems. When I say cloud, it's your cloud data and apps. Third party, the same person might connect to a third party website. You might have you're connecting with subject matter experts and things like that. And I keep coming up with these scenarios, and I don't know that you can limit them. You know, you go into a plant and you have today, particularly with 5G coming around, you might go into a plant, you have a laptop that you now connect to the network. Serviceman comes in, he connects to your network. You certainly want to let him do that so he can fix the equipment or test the equipment. And at the same time, maybe he's connected by 5G, and he might be connected to something outside, some external site, to his own site. So I don't even think you can limit it that way. So it's a very complex issue of security. And obviously, this raises a lot of risks. You know, every time you have a worker connecting to something, he's creating a new pathway into critical systems and proprietary information. There's much more chances when you have a lot of these devices today, and the workers are outside, of having people literally steal the devices, compromise the devices. They'll get right into your laptop. You know, like Sid Snitkin leaves his telephone sitting here. Next thing you know, somebody steals all my passwords. And that one password I use for everything. Going back to Clint. Actually, I do use one password for a lot of dumb things. I have one that I use because I can't remember the darn things. I really sound bad here, don't I? In a cybersecurity conference, but that's life. But anyhow, and you know, the risk, obviously, this puts at risk a lot of things. There's the safety and environmental incidents, disruptions to operations, and things like that. So my whole thesis here is that, you know, industrial companies need security programs that can manage these connected worker risks. And here's that picture I showed before. And I just want to make a point of this. In this report, I have all different kind of scenarios in there. But in this one, if you look what I mean by connected workers, and I think you have to think of them in this context. First of all, when I say connected workers, a lot of people think of secure remote access. And that's very important. You've got somebody on the outside that's trying to get on the inside. Very important. And that picture, notice I have IT at the top and OT at the bottom because the problems are similar, okay? But you have somebody on the outside that says, I want to get access on the inside. Now, the person who's, well, I use the term external. The external person is somebody that doesn't work for your company. So you don't know how much to trust that person. Though some people may say they trust some outsiders more than they trust their own employees, not because they don't trust the people, but for security reasons and things. But one case for external workers is that they come into your plant. So, but they're using their own devices in your plant, okay? The other thing is where they are literally outside and they're connecting to you through public networks and who knows what. The third case that I think on here is where you have somebody on the inside. I think everybody's familiar with the external problems and deal with that on a daily basis. The one thing I think is going to be happening more in the future is the internal people using devices that you have connected into your systems. And the fact that you have those devices connected into your systems tends to make everything trusted. You trust it's coming from that device. You probably don't do a bunch of checks on that device connecting to some application, connecting to something else. It's kind of trusted. The person's in your facility, so you trust them. But in the past, nobody would go on the outside. They didn't go out for stuff. Now that's happening much more. You know, first of all, you have a lot of people who are downloading things from websites into their piece, into that device, whatever it may be. I think in the future, you're going to see people communicating with subject matter experts more, using that device, like I just said. They might say, hey, I'm having a problem, come in. I mean, you may do it already. It's a common thing, I think, in the IT world, where you have service people come in and take over your device. I know we do that. When I have to have something done, you know, we have an IT group that will come and take over my PC, okay? It's very common. I think you're going to see that happening more in facilities. Now, people probably may disagree with me. That's okay. That's just the way the world works. But that's another case. So it's the internal person trying to access things on the outside. And then one other point I want to make on the slide is when I do that, one thing is you're thinking, okay, you have a device and you're doing messages back and forth. But another thing that's happening that I think changes the nature of the problem here is data. Historically, you know, in IT, in cybersecurity, people talk about IT cybersecurity as the CIA model. You know, confidentiality, integrity, what's the A mean? Availability, excuse me. Where, you know, OT is AIC. And many plants say, oh, our data is not that important. I mean, they don't want to lose it. But I think that was in the role, in the environment where it was rather controlled and very limited. Now, all of a sudden, you're opening the store with these connected workers to all of your data. And a lot of people may not even know what data is important. So there's much more likelihood that you're going to have problems with moving data into and out of your facility. So it raises that issue. And you can't see, that was supposed to be a different color kind of thing, but this is the area we want to talk about on this panel. It's just down in the OT world, my picture there. And I also am not going to try to talk about the construction site case and things like that. The one I asked this panel to talk about was more the issues about a facility, a traditional OT system or ICS system, depending on how you might want to call it. That's a little inside joke there. That's why I looked at Keith Tashari. But anyhow, so that's the focus. And what did I do? Okay. And the point I made earlier, and I don't want to take too much time here, but the point I made earlier was the reason this is a different issue, I think, why you have to really think about connected workers as a new challenge, is number one, you can't do this case-by-case engineered connection thing. You know, I think it's very traditional. I'm an engineer. I worked as an engineer for, actually a physicist, but I worked as an engineer for many years. And, you know, engineers tend to say, okay, tell me exactly the case that you want me to secure here. You know, what are you going to do? Why are you doing it? How are you going to manage all that kind of stuff? And you kind of do a well-defined thing of what the case is, and then you can architect an answer. Well, the problem with connected workers is you have somebody in a facility that needs to repair something, and you don't know what information they need to get from the outside. You don't know what sites they're going to go to. You don't know what they're going to access. They may go and communicate with a person or something. It's very hard to define what that case is going to be because it depends upon what the problem is and what the situation is. So you have that problem that I don't think you can just say, I'm going to pre-engineer every situation to the kind of specificity that's normally required. So what you really need is to come up with a solution that covers all those kinds of transactions. And that, to me, is one that's based on interaction by interaction. Now, this is Sid Snitkin's view, apparently. I'm just saying. So instead of thinking about perimeters and keeping things out of perimeters and inside perimeters, you have to think much more of the transaction and make sure the transaction is secure from end to end, all aspects of it. The device is secure, you trust the person, all those issues, which is really what the essence of zero trust is, I think. And zero trust is becoming very popular, I think, in the IT world. I don't know that it is in the OT world, and I'm not so sure you can easily implement it in the OT world, because there's a lot of things you're going to say, I'm not going to be able to insist that people use multi-factor authentication. I'm going to check devices. I'm going to use NAC. There's lots of systems that don't have that kind of capabilities, and it's not easy to add. But it's more that when you think of upgrading or doing stuff, maybe you have to find a way to do that if it's an issue. And in my report, I just want to make a point, and I don't want to dwell on this, but these are solutions that the way I classified in the report, the kinds of solutions you probably don't have that maybe you're going to need someday to solve this whole problem. This includes mobile device management, identity and access management, zero trust network management. Usually there's a thing called zero trust network access, but it's a little broader than that, what I described. Secure remote access, which people will say we have that today because they have VPN, but I think you'll quickly find that's not a really good answer to that problem. But something like privileged access management. Now, I personally was never even thought of that before, but you don't want to tell somebody on the outside, give them privileged information that they can use to get into privileged accounts. So you have to somehow deal with that. Maybe do, what's the word, least privilege? Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of. Least privilege. You might have to put in something that actually changes privileges based upon who's doing it, when it's being done, and stuff like that to minimize that. And then there's this category I call secure internet access is really a whole variety of solutions, things like remote browsers and things like that. Is that the term? Boy, my brain's just not working this morning. But what I'm talking about is, you don't use the browser. Like if you're using a PC in your facility, you have a browser, you don't want to actually connect to the site with that browser because something could get downloaded and compromise that device. Instead, you go out to something that's a proxy browser on the outside that if it gets compromised, but that doesn't get down into your system. Very complex kind of issues. And most companies don't think about that today. For OT, I'm raising the issue and saying that they do.